Hello and thanks for joining us on this, the Sportsman Untitled podcast live stream in association with Betfred here on YouTube. We'll be going live very shortly, so get your popcorn, get your headphones on and tune in for one of the best live episodes of talking about sport you will have ever heard. And if you're lucky, we might do this again sometime. So as I said, sit back, relax, grab some popcorn and we'll be with you in about 30 seconds. Now, before we begin, it would be remiss of me not to ask you to like, subscribe, share with your friends, family, the dog, the cat, whoever. And also, if you fancy, we are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your audio podcasts. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Wow. I've had a minute to compose myself now after that. Welcome to the Sportsman Untitled post-match. We are reflecting with myself, Benjamin Bloom, and EFL expert Gab Sutton on a frankly extraordinary finish to the playoff semi-final second leg between Sunderland and Coventry. 1-0 on the night to Coventry until minute 123 on the verge of penalties. Sunderland had even brought on a penalty taker on 120 minutes and a winning goal from Dan Ballard. Absolutely incredible. I don't need to hype it up, but I think my pulse rate's just about coming down. Gab, it's going to be Sunderland facing Sheffield United in the final. We'll get into the specifics, but wow, what have you got to say about that ending?
Unbelievable, Ben. I think those moments where Dan Ballard headed it in at the near post, when Sunderland had the wind in their sails, didn't they, in those closing stages, and that moment, that's what we love football for, isn't it? That pure euphoria. People were expecting it to go to penalties. There wouldn't even have been time for Coventry City to hit them on the counter-attack. It was like that last moment. And it was a brilliant bullet header. Dan Ballard absolutely deserved the glory after his performances across the two games. I remember speaking to an Arsenal fan when he first went on loan to Swindon. This would be 5 or 6 years ago. And he said he was reminiscent of a young Tony Adams. And I suppose that rang true tonight because he was absolutely imperious in his own penalty box and then right at the end in the opposition's.
Absolutely incredible. The prices from Betfred are coming in now, Gab, for promotion. Sheffield United, as you'd imagine, 8-11 favourites. Sunderland 11-10. Remember, please gamble responsibly. 18 plus. BeGambleAware.org. And it's third versus fourth again.
Yeah, absolutely. I think really curious to see both teams because I suppose they've had similar approaches in both their ties in the sense that Sheffield United have looked to hit their opponents on the counter-attack. They absorbed the possession of Bristol City across the two games and then went very direct to Kiefer Moore in that 4-4-2 shape. And then I suppose Sunderland have done similar with that pace of Mayenda and Isidore, and that's how they've got about it. Albeit, I think for Sunderland, the substitution bringing on Romain Mundle was really important to them, and Chris Rigg as well. That was a bit of a game changer, I think, really. But I think really curious because both sides have absorbed possession well in the across the two legs and kind of dealt with the pressure, if you like, more so maybe in Sunderland's case than Sheffield United's, who kind of kept them at arm's length. But what's going to be fascinating to me, and I don't know about you, Ben, is who takes the initiative in that game. Will it be a bit of a stalemate? Be really fascinating to see how things pan out.
Looking ahead already to the tactical matchup in the final. Let's talk about the tactical matchup tonight, Gab, because you and I discussed a couple of times going into this game, didn't we, as to what this might look like. And I think what we got in the end was a similar pattern in terms of Sunderland kind of sitting and Coventry having the ball for the most part. We did see a lot more intensity and urgency from Sunderland early in the game, didn't we? Which kind of took us to half time. But there was a sense that if, especially after Coventry scored, that if one team was winning this, that it was probably going to be Coventry. Talk to me about the tactical matchup and what regrets will Frank Lampard have?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of the matchup, yes, it did feel like Coventry applied a bit more pressure than they applied pressure in the first leg, but I think even in the second leg they had spells where they really had the bit between their teeth, and they had Grimes a bit further up, like we'd spoken about. Jay De Silva got forward really well at times, I thought, from left back. I think it made a difference having Hadji right down the middle and Mason Clark on the left. So definitely Coventry were better in some of the aspects that we spoke about the other evening. But I think from Sunderland's point of view, again, they'd argue they were resolute. I felt like they rode their luck a little bit, but when Régis Le Bris did make those substitutions that gave Coventry City something different to think about, and he'll probably reflect on the fact that it did take Sunderland's lead going for him to actually do make those moves that gave Coventry a bit more to think about. But when those substitutions did happen, they made the difference.
I suspect Lampard is going to get some criticism of that there was plan A and there was do plan A better. And then when he brings Josh Eccles in for Ben Sheaf, and all the comments in my watch along were saying, get Ellis Sims in, get another striker in, attack. It was a very subtle change. It appeared like it worked, but was there more that Lampard could have done? Has he fallen on his sword there, or of just circumstances with... if you look at the two legs, Gab, you've got a horrendous mistake giving away one of the goals and a last-second header with the other one. How's this going to reflect on Lampard?
Yeah, I mean, one last-second header that did go in, and another last-second header that didn't go in from Hadji Wright, if you remember, at the end of normal time, of course. So, I definitely think Frank Lampard will reflect on this as an evening of those moments that didn't quite go his way, and so yes, I think there's definitely. There's definitely a bit of hard luck there. But I also think that maybe, I don't know what you think about this, Ben, there's probably a question mark as to whether Coventry City would have been ready for the Premier League, because I think that this squad is significantly short. Even in terms of the first 11, you've got 5 or 6 players that could stand up in the Premier League, and you've got another sort of 4 or 5 areas that you'd maybe think, I'm not quite sure about that, and so. Yeah, that would be my thinking. The silver lining for Coventry is that this does give them a summer to maybe upgrade on some of those areas. Obviously, you don't pick and choose when you get promoted, but I'm not sure they quite would have been ready for the Premier League. I think they're a little bit off that.
We're going to go to the comments in a second and read a few. I'll just respond to that, Gab. There's probably almost a sense that if it was Mark Robbins and Adi Vivash in the dugout, they would say, okay, it's the end of a long journey and they would be ready to do it. But obviously Lampard's only been in there, I didn't even know when he went in, maybe sort of December time, November, December, I can't remember the exact time that Lampard came in. But I just feel there's a sense now with promotion to the Premier League that it's almost like becoming a parent, isn't it? It's like you're never going to be ready, and you just got to do your best when you get there and take that TV money and try and build your club and compete with the 17 up there. And I don't know, there's been a lot of heartbreak for Coventry, hasn't there? In just gigantic, huge games, the playoff final against Luton, extra time, penalties, sudden death they lost on. I know it's not EFL related, but the FA Cup semi-final, and now today they are it feels like they've been humbled in a horrible fashion a few times now, Coventry, doesn't it, Gav?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a bit of playoff heartache from that Fancati Darbo miss 2 years ago. So certainly playoffs haven't been their friend. But I also think it's really encouraging that from where they were earlier in the season, 17th when Frank Lampard came in. So I think that there's real optimism that can be taken from the way they've climbed up the table. But we do have a video from our friend of the show and guest Ollie Mann from Sheffield United Way reacting to Sheffield United's victory in their tie against Bristol City with a comfortable aggregate victory. Here's what he had to say.
Oh, hiya lads. Obviously still riding a massive high from last night, planning my trips to Wembley, getting all excited, and then sat down to watch the other playoff semi-final. A fantastic win for Sunderland, and my word, it has got me stressing. It's got me worried. It's got me panicking. I think it's one of those where, the performance, I thought the game, 120 minutes, I thought it was really poor, if we're being honest with ourselves. So it was high in tension, high in all of that sort of drama that you want to see, but there just wasn't that much of it on the pitch. Obviously, Haji Wright misses an absolute gilt-edged chance to cost Coventry the game, but what worries me more than anything, you watch the performances and you think, what, over 2 legs, we've just won 6-0. We're better than that. Surely we're better than that. But that moment at the end, that explosion of noise and celebration and everything that's just come out of the stadium alive, it worries me. Because the momentum, the confidence, the push that they're going to get off the back of a result and the way that they've won that game is going to be absolutely huge. I think if Sunderland are looking to learn lessons from tonight, the big one for me is how much better they were once Enzo Lefebvre moved into the centre. I thought out on the left for 180 minutes through the semi-final, he'd been really poor. Questions about, is he going to be a flop? What impact's he bringing to this team? Thought once they moved him central in extra time, he had so much more impact. They looked so much more balanced with him being able to receive the ball on the half turn, get himself involved, drive them forward. Obviously, having Mundle back on that wing as well makes a huge difference. Yeah, they're a dangerous side. It's going to be a huge game. It's the rightful game at Wembley, let's be honest. 3rd versus 4th, the 2 teams who deserve it the absolute most over the season. The only 2 teams who even looked remotely capable of challenging with Burnley and Leeds. But it's going to be a big one. But we've got to believe, 100 years since we last did it at Wembley, our 10th playoff campaign, but it's going to be the first one that does not end in failure. This has got to be our year. It's got to be our time. We've got to be the best team. Bring on Sunderland. Bring on Wembley. Up the Blades.
Brilliant stuff. I think we're going to be able to be joined by Simon Lillibury in just 1 second's time. We're just going to look at a few of the comments. Simon, I don't know if you've got your volume up. I'm getting quite a lot of feedback your end, matey. Going into the comments here. AJJ, Seb, we switched the switch. Second half of extra time. Wouldn't like to play poker with Reggie. One from Crookie there. 3rd versus 4th now for 4 of the last 5 years. Stephen, I was dreading penalties. Thank God we love Ballard. And Lock, yes, Isidore could win the final, but disappears out of the game. Interesting selection dilemma. We have talked a lot about Coventry. We've got Simon on. We will get into talking about Sunderland, who obviously are our victors tonight. In fact, I think we just get Simon to sort his sound and his headphones and whatnot. Gab, talk to me about Sunderland. That feels like a triumph for Regis Lebris, but there was a few comments saying, Ben, they've only attacked for 5 minutes of this 180 and they've managed to score 3 goals in it. I don't know, that feels a little bit churlish because, it was a mighty effort to get through and they did it. Let's talk now specifically about Sunderland, Gab.
Yeah, I think I would maybe question. I think you can't question the outcome, which is Sunderland have got to the player final, which is great. I do think I would probably credit how Regis Lebris went about the first leg in terms of absorbing the pressure and hitting them on the counter attack. I think that's a very reasonable first leg approach. I think for the second leg, albeit they did have the lead, I felt like they tried to contain Coventry for the 90 minutes, and I'm not sure that that was realistic. So for me, it was when they started taking, because you look at it, Sunderland have got some real quality in that team. And somebody like Joe Bellingham, there were spells where Joe Bellingham really stamped his authority on that game and really drove the team forward. And I would have liked to have maybe seen more spells. And I think the dilemma that you've got, Ben, when you go into the second leg with a victory is that you think if we draw this game, we're fine, we're through, which is ultimately what's happened. But I do kind of question the sense of sitting back and sort of just trying to hold Coventry out, because I think it was always a big ask for them to do that for 90 minutes. So great outcome, not one or two reservations about how they got there.
But people are going to say, given what you've said, and I agree, Gab, are Sunderland just going to feel their names on this now? do you know what I mean? The way they've won. And Simon, we'll come to you in a second, fella.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, what was so important was but firstly how well they defended their box with Dan Ballard again. Absolutely unbelievable with the headers and constantly there. Coventry employed very much a crossing heavy approach to the game, and that had some joy for them. But Dan Ballard was imperious in the Sunderland box. But then I think that you had some moments when they were able to play on the front foot, where you did have Trey Hume flying beyond Patrick Roberts and sort of opening things up, but that probably didn't happen as often as Sunderland would have liked. But once Chris Rigg came on for Wilson Isidore and Romain Mundle into extra time came on for Patrick Roberts, I think that made a real difference to the momentum of the game. So I think from Sunderland's point of view, it shows they had players on the bench that can influence games. And maybe, Simon, maybe to throw it forward to you, is this maybe a question mark tonight, a question mark about Coventry in terms of squad depth? Because the only player that Frank Lampard brought on across the 90 minutes was Josh Eccles for Ben Sheaf, which is pretty close to a like-for-like change. So does this suggest that maybe for Coventry moving forward into hopefully another promotion push in the Championship next season, your squad's going to need to be a bit stronger?
Simon, we'll get into the detail. I've got to come with the emotional angle first because, mate, how are you feeling after that? Gab and I were discussing before you came on. There's been some heartbreak for Coventry fans over the last couple of years. I don't want to ask you the question, but where does that rank with all the horrible things you've had to watch in the last few years? Just an incredible ending. Commiserations, boss.
Yeah, it was. I expected little going into tonight, so I was very calm before the game. And then you watch the game pan out the way it panned out, and I was stunned Sunderland played the way they played. I can't believe they didn't come out and try and kill us in the opening half an hour as I thought they would. I can't believe they let us have as much of the ball and kind of repeat what we saw at the CBS. So obviously the game pans out how it pans out, and you get to 1-0 up. Brilliant goal, brilliant cross, as Gab's touched upon. The crossing strategy seemed to pay off a bit. Sakamoto I thought was brilliant again, and he's been criticised for not doing it in away games. I thought he was superb throughout. I thought we really controlled the game. I thought it was our best away performance we've put in, given we've lost to Luton and we've lost to Plymouth. I think Lampard was spot on in a lot of his decisions, and then ultimately you lose it late on like that. I think we definitely deserved a penalty shootout tonight, but that's not what we got. And it's another, as you say, heartbreaking late defeat for Coventry. It doesn't hurt that much this time. I think there is a difference in what we saw two years ago. Because 2 years ago when we lost the playoff final, we were built on loans. We had Gyökeres, we had Hamer, who we both thought we were going to leave. You look at the squad now and you think it's a squad on long contracts that we can potentially build upon. Okay, we're going to get interest in Van Avaak and Rodoni, you would expect, maybe Hadjirat as well. But the majority of that squad should be here next season. We've made the managerial change, so Lampard will be here next season as well. I was concerned how he would handle this away leg in the semi-final. I'm actually coming out of it feeling a bit more enthused with what he did and how he actually controlled the game. Going to a sellout stadium like that, 50,000 fans or whatever it was, and controlling the game and keeping them under pressure. I think there were some individual mistakes where we could have kept them penned in a bit more. I think they played the game they played in the first leg with a few dodgy dives from Luke O'Nine and the like, which I saw. The worst offside decision I've ever seen, by the way, at the start of that second half, with Matt Grimes stood about 20 yards onside from a goal kick. But it is what it is. We played really well, and yeah, I'm okay with it. You know, Sunderland have been better than us throughout the whole season. I thought we were probably better than them over the two legs, but they showed a side to the game that we probably didn't able to show and weren't able to show over the two legs, and that late winner was brutal, as you say, absolutely brutal.
I asked Gab about how Lampard managed the kind of tie, Simon. I think I'm intimating from your last answer that you think it's more circumstance than mistakes and missed opportunities. Yeah,
I mean, the Milan Van Ayvac mistake at the start of the first leg puts us on the back foot. Maybe if the scores were level, we would have seen a different second leg. Yeah, there were a few missed opportunities as we saw today. The Jack Rodoni chance stabbed over. The Hadji Wright chance he headed over last second, obviously, was a big opportunity, but it just felt like it didn't quite come for him right in the box there. I just think it was one of those games where we were knocking on the door, we managed to get the goal. And I think Gab's right in what he touched upon about squad depth. I think in extra time you saw we had nothing left to give. Shout out to EFL Mason Clark, by the way. Not started for about 6 weeks, I think it was. Came on for 20 minutes in the first leg and then got through, 115 minutes, and he was top class, I thought, on the left wing for us. And you just kind of saw a lack of depth with us. I think the Hadji Wright thing up front was again hit and miss. Whatever happens next season, we probably need to look at the striker area and get someone in. I mean, Ellis Sims didn't play a single minute over both semi-final legs, which kind of tells you all you need to know about his situation and his future at the club and what we think of him at the moment. Hadji Wright, I think, was left on in case it went to penalties. He's our first choice penalty taker, decent finisher in the box, but I think there was a chance, obviously the header at the end, and I think the chance where he was running at Luke O'Nine and he completely lost the ball and tripped over it, and Luke O'Nine dealt with it really, really well, won the ball, won the free kick. I think that was a massive opportunity as well. So there were a few chances we kind of missed, but yeah, at the end of the day, I think Sunderland, over the course of the season, have been better than us. As I say, I think we probably edged it and dominated the ball and dominated the game, especially today. I thought we were really, really good, and just unfortunate it kind of ended like that. But they came out and they were very good in extra time, and we weren't.
Gab, do you want to revisit that topic now on kind of, I think you were going with what happens next now for Coventry in terms of...
I was going with a very robotic, logical piece
dive in, go on.
To a fan that's just lost the playoff semi-final in the last minute. I wanted to pick up, Simon, kind of throwing it forward if you've got the, that you're in the space to do that, because... I wanted to ask you about Hadji Wright, because we've seen him play very well in his first season on the left wing. We've seen him have some great games this season up top. Do you expect him to be Coventry City's number 9, first choice number 9 next year? Or would you fully expect Frank Lampard to bring in a centre forward that's going to become the first choice, and Hadji Wright might sort of play predominantly on the left? But you've also got Mason Clark, who I like a lot.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, actually. I could see him leaving for the right price tag this summer. I think we're looking at Frank Lampard, who will want to bring in his own players. Let's not forget that Matt Grimes is the only player he signed for this Coventry City squad. Everyone else was from the Mark Robins era. I look at Ellis Sims as a striker who, if we can get our money back on him and let him play his football elsewhere, might be worth doing. As I say, wasn't even given a chance. Hadji Wright, he's hit and miss, isn't he? On his day, when he knows he's better than him, his man, he's absolutely brilliant. He's a great finisher, good penalty taker. But I don't know. He leaves fans frustrated, and for good reason. I think at times he's scored some big goals for us. We paid a lot of money for him. I can't. I'm not sure. I'm not sure is my answer to that question, which is very diplomatic. If he does stay, I think he probably will be our starting number 9, and I think we'll maybe look to recruit some support for EFL Mason Clark on the left. But yeah, he's a real enigma, and I think you saw that tonight, kind of hit and miss. He worked kind of hard, I thought. He was left on the pitch again for the whole game. Yeah, a difficult one. I would like to see more competition in the striker area. If we are going to, I think we have to say, if you want to get promoted from the Championship now, you need to finish in the top 4, don't you? Rather than the top 6. We've seen that for quite a few years now, and I think we need to try and bridge that gap to be a top 4 Championship team.
There you go. Simon, I'm sorry to do this to you, but I can throw to Gab first, but we've got to talk about the final to round this out. And obviously Coventry are not going to be in there. It is going to be on the 24th at a kickoff time, still to be determined by the EFL. Come on, guys. Come on. It is going to be Sunderland versus Sheffield United. As we said with our friends from Betfred, Sheffield United are 8-11 favourites. Sunderland 11-10, but probably getting backed in as we speak. Of course, if you're on that 18 plus only, please gamble responsibly. BeGambleAware.org. Gab, talk to me about this final.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see whether, because Sheffield United can't as easily cut Sunderland open by going long to Kiefer Moore and sort of hitting them in those back to front kind of attacks, which they did extremely well against Bristol City. But obviously Sunderland are a much more compact team, so they're going to have to use Kiefer Moore in a different way. It's not going to be so much balls over the top as Kiefer Moore maybe peeling onto defenders. I'd probably think him up against somebody like Luke O'Nien, who is an incredible character, if you like, but maybe not an incredible defender at Championship level. That's probably one angle that Chris Wilder will probably be looking at, especially with the quality of deliveries from Gus Harmer. And I think from Sunderland's point of view, I would like to see them find, or I know that 4-4-2 shape has brought them success across these two legs. I do think I would like to see them deviate from that a little bit to give themselves a bit more control. I think you look at the impact that Rigg and Mundell made when they came on. Okay, they were impact players at the end of the game, but I think that shows that maybe they could do with the fresh legs of Mundell, should we say, even if he gives him a longer run out. I think that's going to make a huge difference. Chris Rigg again, I think he's got a part to play. So a lot to think about for Regis Lillibury. So I'm not sure that the containment job for the 120 minutes is quite going to do it for Sunderland. So I do think that they've got to be careful about, well, can we try and find ways to hurt Sheffield United beyond just those more simplistic passes down the channels for Elisa Meander.
This feels like some kind of weird binary digit now, but I've got my spreadsheet up there that goes 4th, 3rd, 4th, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 3rd, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 4th. I don't know what to make of that. That's your last about 12 winners, I think, for the playoffs. What are you thinking about the final, Simon? Obviously, you've had a very up-close and personal look at Sunderland in tournament football mode, and Sheffield United after that last international break. How are you feeling about the final? And are we all going to be going under 1.5 goals with Betfred, as Gab kind of intimated earlier in the show?
Yeah, it's an interesting final to kind of look forward to. I mean, I'm trying to take the positives of it and think that I'm not sure we were quite ready for the Premier League anyway, and it saved me a few £100 going down to London. So there's the positives from my point of view. I think Sunderland seem like quite a good tournament football team, and we've talked about it. I do think they got a few things wrong today, and I do worry that Lebris might be too negative, but it's a one-off game now, and that could work. With a 4-4-2, if he goes direct, that could work. You have to make Sheffield United the favourites, I think, with the quality they've got all over the pitch. I think they've really impressed, but again, weren't handed much of a challenge. And I think Ollie touched on it. How much impact is the fact that Sheffield United won their semi-final 6-0 and had nothing to worry about, whereas Sunderland scored a 123rd minute winner, whatever it was, and had all that emotion in front of their own fans and are carrying that into the final, which of course is only just over a week away. How much impact will that have heading down to Wembley? I think I'd shade back in Sheffield United, but I think it's going to be very, very tight. One goal probably could decide it. I think I'd probably just shade with Sheffield United based on what we've seen over the course of the season. But if there's a team that can beat them, I think Sunderland can set up to kind of grind it out, nick one on the break, maybe win on penalties, who knows. Yeah, it's going to be very intriguing and tactical battle, that final, I think.
Gab, it's a very, very late night. One more question for you, mate. 100 years, Sheffield United, they never win finals. People tell me that doesn't affect the players, but I know it affects the fans. And Wembley is actually a strange place on playoff final day. It's often a an interesting atmosphere, let's just say, with the big half and half kind of bowl in there. Chris Wilder's going to be asked about it repeatedly. 9th playoff, no wins. Is there anything in that in terms of Sheffield United previous playoff trauma?
Yeah, they had one against Huddersfield in 2012, I think it was, when they've been primarily right up there, the leading the race for the top two all the season, and Sheffield Wednesday kind of came in at the end, and then they lost to Huddersfield in the playoff final. So they've had a few like that sort of heartbreak. Where am I? Yeah, I think I don't know if I actually really buy into it. I think fans probably buy into it, and they feel like, oh, we never do well in playoffs. But I also kind of feel like sort of traditions were made to be broken, that at some point your luck can change. So I'm not particularly superstitious. I don't really read too much into that, but I'm sure the fans will be nervous for that reason.
Simon, I've got to let you have the last word before we plug the preview show. I'll let you have the last word if I can say commiserations. There you go. Commiserations, matey. What's your just final reflections on a brutal ending to tonight?
Yeah, really proud of the players and the effort they put in from our point of view. I mean, you have to say, I wasn't expecting us to go there and kind of win in 90 minutes and force extra time like we did. I think they controlled the game for the majority of it, but ultimately I think Sunderland kind of got things right when it really mattered, probably in both legs. Hit us on the counter in the first leg. I think we did well in the second leg, but extra time kind of killed us a bit. And Ballard, man of the match over the 2 legs, wasn't he? Cleared everything in the first leg, dominated in the air again, and ultimately, not sure how that header exactly went in off the top of his head where he stooped down and popped in off the bar, but that's football, eh? And interesting to see how Sunderland get on at Wembley. It'll be a really interesting final, and I'm looking forward to it.
Guys, thank you so much for all of the support. We've been here, Gab and I have been here every night for each of these playoff semi-finals, and it is very late, and we knew we were getting extra time somewhere, and it just happened to be tonight. I'm going to go and sit in a dark room for the next 2 nights. Well, Gab goes into League One mode. I think Simon's going to skip the country, but don't worry. We will be back next Tuesday on the Sportsman channel. I think Simon, Gab, Ollie and Johnny from Roker report. Bill, subject to change, but we think that's what's going to be on the show next week for the playoff final preview. Guys, thank you so much for your support, your amazing comments. Please hit subscribe and hit the thumbs up before you leave this wonderful stream. And we will, I won't, but the boys will see you for the playoff final preview, and I will see you at Wembley if you're down there. Congratulations, Sunderland. Commiserations, Coventry. Let's all go to bed, Seb.